know exactly who I am. Taking everything I want. Don't believe me, then just watch. Spinning like the earth is mine. Moving like I own this time. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Ain't backing down. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Ain't afraid to bare my soul. Ain't afraid to walk on coals. Hear the thunder when I step. You know where to place your bet. I'm burning like a house on fire, cutting like a razor wire. I ain't gonna tell no lies, I ain't gonna apologize. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Ain't backing down. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Not trying to be your hero. It's the only way that I know. This battle is never through. Every risk that I take, every bone that I break, just doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Ain't backing down. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do. Can't stop me now. Ain't backing down. Can't stop me now. I'm just doing what I do. Won't stop doing what I do.
All right. My dear fellow listeners and viewers, good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of the Dr. Narine Dat Show. For those of you who have been watching and viewing and listening and all of that will know exactly what we do here. But I want to remind you that there are a few different ways to listen to the show. You can listen to us on the regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers digital cable for those of you who have the Rogers digital box. And of course, we're also live streaming our interview here. So by all means, take the opportunity to share our page. The whole purpose of the Dr. Narine Dat Show is to create a safe space for positive energy and mutual respect. And we bring you interesting guests. And this evening is no different. We have a very special guest, as I mentioned, Colene. Colene, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. The weather is beautiful, as you know. I've had my
Yeah.
walk earlier today, and I'm looking forward to do that later on today as well too when we're done. So
Yeah.
glad that you're doing well. So on the format in the show, I mean, we will have a good time here, that I can
Yeah.
tell you, because you're very much passionate about, you know, the work you do, which really
Mhm.
aligns, with me as well too. But obviously this is your first time on the show here, even though we've met in the past. So take it away. You're the only one here. Take your time, introduce yourself, to us, to the audience, to the listeners, to the viewers, so that they get to know a little bit about you. Then we will
Yeah,
dive into some of the work you've been doing over the years. So take it away.
sure. Oh my goodness, where do I start?
Anywhere you
So,
want to start.
I'm not shy about my age. So I was actually born in 1969 here in Waterloo Region at St. Mary's Hospital when they were still doing maternity at St. Mary's. They don't anymore in Kitchener. I lived until I was 14 years old out in Petersburg in Wilmot Township, just outside of Kitchener. And then when I was 14, we relocated from there to Roseville, which is just outside of Ayr, on the other side. So I went from one side of Kitchener-Waterloo to the other. And then at age 17, I left Roseville, and well, that becomes a story of its own, because I ended up spending 3 years being homeless and street involved. Got off the streets when I was 20, and then did a bunch of odd jobs. In 2010, I went to college. I graduated with the President's Honors Diploma in Law from Fanshawe. Went to work for a couple of lawyers as a clerk, did some work in the insurance industry. Before I did that, I also worked at Microsoft and IBM doing IT-related stuff before the dot-com crash in 2008, 2009. And then about probably 5 years ago, well, maybe a little more than that, turned my attention to social services and worked for a neighborhood association for a while. Worked as an emergency shelter support worker at the House of Friendship Men's Shelter. I currently hold 2 roles. One of them is a community liaison outreach facilitator and employment coordinator with the Canadian Mental Health Association Waterloo Wellington, and my other role is as a co-facilitator of a virtual social group for extended family Waterloo region. So bounced around, done a lot of things.
Amazing, amazing. And thank you so much for highlighting that to us so nicely. We have lots to talk about here. I like how you keep going regardless of what challenges comes your way. I want to get into the piece when you share about you being homeless. I want us to talk a little bit about that because, as you know, we live in tough times. A lot of people are in difficult situation. I can assure you some of the pieces that you are going to share here will make a huge difference if folks are listening. But I want to mention one thing very quickly, now that it's relevant. Do know that I did work at House of Friendship as well. She was a supervisor in the men's residential. You know that?
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah, and it was a very unique experience for me because those folks, they stay there at that occasion, right? So it's kind of very interesting. I've never had a role as such, where, those clients are there and so forth and whatnot, but it was pretty interesting. So thank you for sharing that. So take me back to, we only have, a certain amount of time. Take me back to the time when you were homeless. Share only what you're comfortable sharing, but there's nothing to be ashamed about here. I'm so glad that you're open about this because you definitely have gone a far way in terms of pushing things forward, and look at you now, right? So what was life like for you when you were homeless?
So a couple of factors that play into that. The first one of which is I'm a woman, or, female. And we are not treated as well on the streets. We are at a great disadvantage living on the streets. And we suffer significant trauma as a result of living on the streets. I am no exception to that. And there were times when it was really dang cold. Really cold. And it was really hard to have hope or faith or a belief in the fact that my life could get better from where it was, because I had actually gone through 3 different shelters here in Waterloo region. Well, actually 4. If you count them all together, it was 4. It started at 1 and then it moved from there to 3 others over the 3 years. And the last shelter was actually the one that allowed me to be able to exit being houseless and street involved and move on with my life at age 20. But it was a lot of, I got, everything I owned was in a duffel bag that I took with me. I was robbed regularly for my possessions, my money, what little I did have. I was assaulted physically as well. So it was a really brutal, difficult life. Fortunately, I never got frostbite, but it came close a couple of times. And, my mental health, my physical health suffered significantly during that time period. It was just brutal. There's no other way to describe it. And unfortunately, it hasn't gotten any better since the time that I was, because we're talking nigh on like, well, let's see, I'm 57 now. So yeah, I hit the streets 40 years ago and I was there for 3 years. So by the time I turned 60, that will be the 40th anniversary of when I left that life and moved on. So, it was a different time. The shelter system was very different. The challenges in some ways were very different, but the emotions don't change no matter what time period or decade we're talking about. It still feels the same, and that I think is probably the biggest thing. Is the emotions don't change, and it's, I mean, hopelessness, fear, anger, sadness, feeling isolated and alone. Loneliness is a big part of it. Recognizing that these people who claim to be your friends are not really your friends. They're there because they need something from you or want something from you. And recognizing that at some points you're behaving the same way because you have no other option. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for openly sharing that with us. How did you get out of it? Because obviously it was challenging, as you just mentioned.
Yeah. There's a story behind this, and we have tried to find the police officer and have been unable to. My bet is he's probably passed away by now. I had gotten kicked out of the place that I was couch surfing. I was sitting in downtown Preston. It was nigh on midnight in January. There was a snowstorm coming in. It was brutally cold. I think I hadn't had a shower in a week. I hadn't eaten anything in 3 days. What little I had left, again, was in the duffel bag. I'm sitting on a park bench. People drove by me. Nobody noticed me. And of course, the one person who does end up noticing me is a police officer. Fantastic. Exactly the person I don't want to notice me. Anyway, he came up to talk to me, told me I couldn't stay there, asked me why I was there. Thus ensued a conversation about how I wound up on the streets and how no, I couldn't go home. And he told me, that I should like smarten up and learn to get along with my family and just go home. That wasn't going to be an option for me as a result of the reason that I was even on the street in the first place. And in my frustration, I actually punched him in the chest. Now, I'm a little 5'2" nothing, weighed about 120 pounds at the time. And I was pretty weak because, like I said, I hadn't eaten in 3 days. So he bundled me up along with my duffel bag in the back of the cruiser. And I thought, great, now I'm going to jail for assaulting a cop. Well done. Well, at least I'm going to get a meal and a warm bed. This isn't as bad, looking for the bright side of a lousy situation. Anyway, it never occurred to me that he didn't put me in handcuffs. It never occurred to me that he didn't really say much after he put me in the cruiser, and he didn't even tell me why he was putting me in the cruiser because I was just making assumptions. I'm 19 years old. I'm screwed, right? Takes me back to the station, puts me in a corner in the office area where his desk was, hands me a blanket, a pillow, goes away for a little bit, comes back with a can of pop and a sandwich, and then tells me to just sit there and don't make any noise. He's got work to do. So I figure, well, he's processing the paperwork so that, he can toss me into a jail cell. Of course, once again, it doesn't occur to me, hey, why am I not already in a jail cell? Anyway, he wakes me up a few hours later, gives me a bus ticket, and tells me, you're going to Mary's place on Frederick Street in downtown Kitchener. They have a bed waiting for you. He had arranged to put me into the women's shelter. That was the very last shelter that I lived in. I managed to get myself a little bachelor apartment out in Waterloo in an old house that surprisingly is still standing on King Street between Columbia and Weber. And never looked back after that.
Wow. So now I can understand why when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned something about a police officer. You were hopeful that you could have meet with him one day. Right?
Yeah, well, I would have liked to have thanked him, but like I said, we went looking for him. We weren't able to find him. And like I said, at this point in time, I was 19 back then. He was already like, probably in his late 30s. I would imagine he passed away quite a while back. But yeah, that's so really, I didn't see it at that moment in time, but that police officer did me a huge favor.
So what would you like to say to other police officers though? Because sometimes they don't always get the credit they deserve, right? As you would know. I mean, we have
Yeah.
good police officers, we have a handful, that we hear differently. But generally speaking, we do have good police officers. What is it that you like to say to other police officers out there?
I think what I'd like to say is sometimes it is worth taking the time to listen and to listen mindfully and to not judge and to have compassion, because even if you don't understand why someone is where they're at, that doesn't mean that they're not there without a good reason. And I really appreciated the fact that at the end of the day, that police officer that pulled me off the streets went at it from the perspective of how can I solve this problem instead of how can I lay a charge. Because let's be honest, I punched him in the chest. I didn't harm him at all.
Mhm.
Having said that, he could have actually laid that charge, and he never did.
Mhm.
Right? So he stopped at that point and went, how can I make this person's situation better instead of how can I lay a charge and make this person's situation worse? And that thinking of how can I make this person's situation better and how can I approach this with mindful listening and with compassion, that makes all the difference in the world. And so what I would say is, as a police officer, and I'm making the assumption that police officers get into the job because they want to make a difference.
Mhm.
One of the best ways you can make a difference is to mindfully listen, not judge, and then ask yourself, what can I do to help this person or to support this person or to make this person's situation better before you do anything else. Right? I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. And that's many years ago. I would assume, we should never assume, by the way, but I would assume that police officers and people in that line of work are better trained as well too to handle situation exactly how that police officer did it for you, right? Because that can make a huge difference. Because think about it. He did that. He could ignore you too because and just pass by. He met with you. He kind of met you where you're at, so to speak. Let me put it that way. Arrange, for you to have, shelter. And I can almost put all the pieces together because those, so I also worked at Argus for a while as one of the managers there, so I understand the shelter system well too.
Yep.
So in that was before. I'm doing different things now, but and so I think, I think they are more prepared now. They're more knowledgeable now. The only issue is, as you would know, here in the region, Waterloo, a lot has changed as well too. We have to be realistic. A lot has changed. Things are not the same way it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, as you would know. The demographic has changed. They're dealing with different, different situations, all of these kinds of things. But having said that, though, at the end of the day, as we speak, there are people who are homeless right now and not sure what tomorrow would look like, not sure if they could make it, like you did, right? What advice do you have for folks? I've had homeless people before. When I say homeless, sorry, when I said people who've been there before, let me put it that way. And they really share their perspective, their story, and whatnot. What advice do you have for folks who are really at the edge right now and not sure, not too sure what tomorrow, will bring for them in that sense? They feel stuck, for example. What advice do you have for them? Because you've done it so well.
Well, it's just to give me a call at work. That's probably going to bite me in the butt if I say that. I think, and here's the thing. Be open to opportunities. Even though everything looks hopeless, even though there's a lot of feelings of isolation, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of bitterness, there's a lot of resentment, that if you're open to possibility and opportunity, at some point the person who is going to be able to make the difference for you is going to be there, and you don't want to miss them, right? That person could be someone like me, right, who's a peer worker, a peer support worker. That person could be a police officer from our community engagement well-being branch. Yes, I'm going to tout them because they're absolutely amazing, and I've worked with them with some folks, and I have nothing but the utmost, you know,
Mhm.
like thrilled to work with community engagement well-being branch at WRPS. They're phenomenal. It could be a social worker, it could be a pastor, it could be, anybody.
Mhm.
But at some point, they will be that one person who will show up that will be able to do that one thing that's going to tilt that balance from, I'm screwed, this is never going to end, to, oh, wait a second, maybe it will. And if you're at least open to the possibility and the hope that that person will be there at some point, then it will happen. And that's a hard thing to do because distrust or
Mhm.
lack of trust is a huge thing. I mean, I didn't even trust that police officer that he
Mhm.
wasn't going to throw me in a jail cell, right? But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, he didn't. And then because he didn't, then I had a little more trust with the next person I interacted with, which was a staff member at the shelter, and so on and so forth. So that's the one piece I would say. The other thing I would say is there are a number of peer support workers throughout Waterloo Region in various organizations who have lived experience with what it is like to be street involved and houseless.
Mhm.
And we are probably the easiest, quickest access for support. And we don't judge. And we
Mhm.
meet you where, we meet our peers where they're at. We hold them in the highest regard. We are there to support in whatever fits for our peer. And
Mhm.
because we are there to do that, I mean, I can't tell you the number of people that literally said, no, I don't want to talk to you, screw off. And then 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, like, change my mind. I want to have a conversation with you.
Mhm.
Right? It also takes persistence too. The person who keeps showing up and accepts that, no, I don't want to talk to you, someday is going to be the one you're going to want to have the conversation with because they keep showing up. Right?
Yeah. And that's important. Yeah. Somehow people still have to find a way with support, to have some sort of motivation, because without the motivation, it's hard to do anything, as you would know, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other neat thing specifically about peer support workers. I can hold hope for somebody when they're unable to hold hope for themselves. Right?
Amazing.
And I
Amazing.
do regularly. And I've said to people who said, look, my situation's homeless. I said, well, you know what? Are you okay with the idea that I will hold hope for you since you can't hold it for yourself right now? And they're always like, yeah, if you want to, or thanks, I'd appreciate that.
Mhm.
And the idea that somebody else holds hope for them sometimes is also the turning point too, right?
Yeah,
Because if you can find somebody else who will hold that hope for you when you don't have that hope, that will change things.
for sure, for sure. So thank you so much for this, by the way. So
Yeah.
what was it like for you to get into the workforce? As you know, it can be hard sometimes because of the
Mhm.
stigma, right? Especially those times. Was it challenging for you to get into the workforce in terms of,
No,
okay, good.
no,
Happy to
it
hear that.
wasn't. It was challenging to stay employed.
Oh, let's talk about that. What was the challenge? What was the challenge? Like the regular routine, the daily routine per se?
No. Sadly, I didn't really recognize when I started going into the workforce the reality that I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't getting any help, support, or treatment for that.
Mhm.
The result of which is I was one exceptionally angry woman and did not take well to some of the things that are expected of someone in the workforce.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't really fired. I was always doing short-term contract work because back in like the late 90s, early 2000s in IT, it was all about contract as opposed to
Mhm.
permanent positions.
Mhm.
Permanent positions were actually a really hard thing to find. So as a result, my contracts never got renewed. So it didn't matter how
Mhm.
good I was at what I did. My attitude was so bad that they didn't want to keep me. Right. And
Mhm.
so that was my challenge, was actually staying employed, not getting a job. Because actually managed to walk in with some pretty impressive credentials. To give you an idea of how well I did in IT, I actually, in my old file somewhere, have a letter of recommendation that was signed with a ballpoint pen from Bill Gates from when
No.
from when I was, but that was before I went to work at Microsoft. And then I applied for a job at Microsoft, and obviously they gave it to me because, the CEO gave me a letter of recommendation. So, I had impressive credentials, but I had a terrible attitude because my mental health challenge was such that it was actually doing it was tearing through my life and doing damage to everything from my work relationships to my personal relationships. And it made it really difficult that way. So it wasn't difficult getting a job. It was difficult keeping it.
Maintaining the job. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, you brought up a
Yeah.
good point there, for
Yeah.
sure. And so, seeing that you're very open and you're
Yeah.
sharing openly here, I can see, understand why you're doing this. Where do you think you stand in life in terms of overall contentment and, in terms of where you're at compared to where you're at now? Where do you think you sit on that scale? 10
Mhm.
meaning, like you're kind of somewhat okay, with life, meaning 10,
Mhm.
and you know what, luck, it's still messy here, meaning 1.
Probably at about a 7.5.
Okay, good.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because I am dealing with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the actual diagnosis I got back in 1992 from a psychiatrist. It's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. I have learned how to manage it very well so that it doesn't, complete havoc on my life. I do encounter situations where I get kicked back on my heels and have to work on, my recovery to bring it back again. Really, my biggest challenge is the maintenance of the recovery point that I'm at now. And I also am one of these people that, sadly, I grew up in an environment where I was taught that, you have to be perfect. And as much as I'd like to let that go, the reality is it was a safety thing to get good marks at school that were always in the 90s, and to perform at a high level all the time. And so even now, I look at my recovery and go, yeah, but I could do better. And the reality is I probably can't, but I keep telling myself I can. Right. So I think that's why I would put it at a 7.5, because it's not where I wish it was. Having said that, it's actually at a really dang good place, relatively speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 7.5 is a really good place, especially now, right?
Yeah.
Because we live in challenging times. So 7.5 is great. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing that. So just hang in there. We'll get back to this interview. So my dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who've just tuned in, I would like to remind you that you're watching and listening the Dr. Narine Dat Show. Here in the Dr. Narine Dat Show, we create a safe space for positive energy and mutual respect. Our guest tonight is a former homeless individual, very knowledgeable, and she's here to share her story with us so that folks can, have some sort of hope, knowing that, look, if they're trapped, in some sort of challenging situation, they can get out of it, providing that they pick good advice, providing that they're ready to make those changes, all of these types of things. So let's get back to the interview here. So, I mean, you've had obviously different jobs, over the years and so forth, but let's focus on the social services related roles. You've had many of those ones.
Yeah.
One of them is related to employment. I work in employment as well, too, in employment Ontario, and I've always enjoyed that. I can tell you that for sure. But there was something special about it because at the end of the day, everybody needs a job, especially if they have a job that they love and enjoy and it fits with their values. It's such a beautiful thing. So I always enjoy that aspect of it. Tell me about your social services journey. You have a specific role that really resonates with you and excites you that you like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. So when I was working as an emergency shelter support worker for 2.5 years with House of Friendship, that role fit about 75% of what I wanted in life. There was about 25% I wasn't thrilled with. 75% was pretty good. I thought, nah, that's pretty good. Then I moved, because I was working part-time with House of Friendship, I also went and got a part-time role with CMHA Waterloo Wellington, originally as a site facilitator for their Cambridge office, and then I got moved to Kitchener. My contract with them came to an end, but there was a job coach position open in employment services at CMHA Waterloo Wellington. So I thought, okay, well, I got nothing to lose. I can apply for this. So I did. And it turns out a lot of the skills were transferable over to the job coach role. So I took on the job coach role, and that was a permanent part-time role. Then I moved up from there to become a job developer. Unfortunately, due to funding cuts and the Employment Ontario transformation, our employment services department was closed. But there was still a small employment program called New Directions that's attached to one of the other teams in CMHA that's funded by the Ministry of Health. So I became a job developer half of my week with that program, and also ended up going back to peer support as the community liaison and outreach facilitator. Then I was backfilling somebody else's role in the employment thing, so that went away. Full-time peer support worker, doing 3 days a week in the Integrated Crisis Center when it was open, which was an alternate destination for the ER, for mental health crisis and distress. We were in partnership with Thresholds on Florence Avenue for that. And then when that ended, the employment coordinator role, the part-time role that I had originally backfilled, became available again. So I went, cool, I'll apply for that one. And I got it. And so now I have what I consider to be the best of both worlds, because I'm passionate about both peer support, outreach, and employment. And so now I do half of each a week.
Excellent.
And it's 95% of what I want to do. There's only about 5% of those two jobs I'm not particularly thrilled with, which I don't think anybody necessarily would be, because, the things like, geez, I hate doing paperwork. Which is surprising for somebody who's a former law clerk to tell you they hate doing paperwork, but it's true, I do. So really, this is the role I'm in right now, is without a doubt the one that I connect with the most, I resonate the most with. I'm passionate about now these two roles, and it's equal. I love them both for very different reasons.
Excellent.
So
you talked about, thank you so much for that. So you talk about the job developer role. I wasn't aware of that. I work also in my earlier years. I also work as a job developer. What advice do you have for folks who are thinking, and again, this is you're just responding based on your experience and all of that. That's all. A lot of people, sometimes they're stuck doing a role, but they're not necessarily happy. It doesn't really give them any sort of satisfaction, all of these types of things. So I was very happy when you keep saying, look, you know what, I'm in a job, it's kind of 95%, what I want, and all these types of things. That really tells me something. But you have people who are in jobs where they're not necessarily happy. It's 95% of what they don't want to do, let me put it that way, and so forth. What advice do you have as a former job developer? I'm not sure if you're still doing job developing, so you have to forgive me.
It is now part of the role, yeah.
Okay, it's part of the role. That's right.
They combined the employment coordinator and job developer roles together and renamed it employment coordinator. So now I do everything from helping people to figure out what they want to go to college for, through to coaching them once they get a new job. So I run the whole gamut now. And it's not so much advice, but I think one of the key pieces that has been really helpful to me is to look at what I'm excited about, to look at the things that I really, really enjoy doing, to look at the possibilities and the opportunities I can create in the roles I'm in. And if the role I'm in, which it didn't necessarily, in all the roles I was in, if it doesn't fit those things, then I'm going to go look for what does fit those things. Right. And I'll be very fair. I have resigned from 2 roles in my entire life. One of them was my role as a cashier at a bulk barn. There's a whole story to that. I resigned because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. The
Mhm.
second one was when I left the House of Friendship after 2.5 years in the shelter program. And really, even resigning from that was a very difficult decision to come to because I positively loved quite a number of aspects of that role. And I was working with a great team. And I genuinely cared about and wanted to support the practical, the emotional, all of the needs that I could within the scope of my role for the men that were in the shelter. But yeah, at the end of the day, it wasn't enough of a fit.
Mhm.
And I was determined that I was going to be able to find something else. And if I stay true to my core values, which I have, and if I look for roles that connect with those core values, and I look for the best fit I can possibly find related to those core values, then I'm in a role that's going to make me happy. And I think the other thing a lot of people forget is, and I forgot it too, there's particularly when I went from being a peer facilitator to the job coach role,
Mhm.
I'm like, I know squat about employment. I don't know
Mhm.
how to coach people through job interviews. I don't know how to coach people on how to keep a job. I've never done this.
Mhm.
Right. But I had done one-to-one peer support for people who were struggling with keeping their jobs.
Mhm.
Right. You have to, or for me, I had discounted an awful lot of my skills
Mhm.
that were the softer skills that
Mhm.
weren't necessarily the ones where I could say, well, I know how to use 6 different versions of Microsoft Outlook or whatever, or I can create the world's greatest pivot table in Excel, right? I forgot that there's a lot of soft skills that I had that I could transfer over to another role. And I'm probably not the only one that's done that,
Mhm.
right? Um, so if for me, I figured out where I was going to find that best fit for my values.
Mhm.
I figured out what skills I had that could actually transfer over both soft and hard or technical skills.
Mhm.
And I figured out how to sell myself really well in those, right? And I also was open to learning, open to continuing education. I mean, before I went to work at employment, I didn't have this certification. I now have a certificate for effective workplace responses to mental health challenges from Pacific Coast University for Workplace Health Sciences in Port Alberni, BC. Thank you to the federal government for paying my $4,500 tuition for that, because they did, which was beautiful, and I found that program. And there's a lot of programs like that out there, so don't make the assumption you have to come up with the money yourself to do it, right, in
Mhm.
order to do that. But I didn't have that certification before I went to employment services. I've had that certification now for just over a year, and it's a really big help, particularly since in the role I'm in now, supporting individuals with mental health challenges or have experienced one, with finding meaningful employment, meaningful volunteer opportunities, or meaningful education and training opportunities. It's really significant to understand that really I'm a return to work and a work retention specialist. But instead of working for the employer, I work for the employee,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I'd say. Figure out what those core values are. Find roles and fields where those values fit. Find companies where those values fit. Consider what your skills are, and be creative about how you look at it. I mean, I once saw somebody put a bullet point, and we've probably all seen this because it showed up at one point too. Put a bullet point in their resume about how playing Dungeons and Dragons provided them with skills that were good for employment. I was hard pressed to argue with it since I played D&D myself. But you can find ways to incorporate skills because it's not always about the skills that you get from paid employment. Sometimes it's about the life skills you have too. right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Like
Thank you
I
so
was
much.
never
Mhm.
paid to garden, but I'll tell you, if you want to know how to square foot garden, I'm your girl because that's my hobby. That's,
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
so
At the end of the day, people have to make things work for them, right? And
yeah.
a little of an effort. I mean, I'm aware that people go through different challenges, at
Yeah.
different times as you share some of yours. But at the end of the day, there are lots of opportunities out there as well too. And then, my line of work, your line of work, we try to focus on those pieces. I'm glad that you
Mhm.
took the time to remind folks about possibility of free training and things of that sort if they
Mhm.
want to upgrading sort of skills. It's always out there. And I believe they changed the name now. You will have to correct me here, but second career and so forth was a really big thing, right? Second
Yeah.
career for people who lost their job. I think they tweeted a little bit or they have different
Yeah.
criteria and so forth, but it's still a good thing.
Well,
Um,
second career used to be 2 years.
mhm.
Better Jobs Ontario is the new thing, and now they're looking at smaller training sessions, like less than a year.
Mm.
Um, because second career actually paid for my college diploma. Yes. As
And
well.
at that time, it was
Yeah.
maximum 2 years, right? But I
Yep.
also, has it ever been where it was longer than that, or two
No,
years was
no.
always the maximum?
2 years
Two
was the
years, yeah,
max.
yeah.
Yeah. That's how I got my diploma in law, actually. So interestingly enough, this certification that I have in effective mental health responses in the workplace and my diploma in law from Fanshawe College, that was all paid for by government programs,
Mm.
provincial and then federal. And I can tell you what the deal, they don't have that particular funding that I used for Pacific Coast University available anymore. But what it was the federal government had done a study, and they had determined that at the time that they did the study that after 1 year, only 1% of people who were on a leave from work as a result of an injury or a mental health challenge were returning to work after a year.
Oh.
99% weren't. Now, that was at that time. So they decided that it would be a good idea to have more what they referred to as disability case managers available,
Mhm.
which were people who specialized in working with individuals who were off on leave as a result of an injury or a mental health challenge or an illness, to have them specifically work with, like, have more of these people available to work with people to get them back to work, to see if they could increase that percentage. So what they did was they funded the tuition for this program at Pacific Coast University, through their continuing education pieces. They funded as many courses as you could register for within a specified time period and complete. And I think it ended in June of 2024
Mm.
was when you had to have all the courses completed by, was the end of June 2024. And it was through the Sectoral Initiatives Fund. And so literally you applied for the courses and then you indicated you were applying for them and you wanted that funding. So I wound up taking something like 25 some odd courses. I did like back injuries, musculoskeletal, supporting workers dealing with cancer, supporting workers with mental health challenges, psychological injury and distress. What else? Like you name it, they had it covered in there somehow, some way. Chronic and episodic illnesses, everything. And so I took, like I said, at the end of the day, it was $4,500 worth of tuition that they paid for me to get all this, but
Mhm.
well worth it, because all of that knowledge now I'm using to help people find and maintain employment who have dealt with a mental health challenge. Right?
And that's the whole purpose of the program, by the way, right? For people
Yeah.
utilize those skill set to kind of hopefully find jobs like you did and
Yeah.
kind of use it that way, which is awesome. Good stuff. I was
Yeah.
not aware of the low percentage of folks returning back to work after some sort of illness or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Well, and it's at 1 year. So what they do was if you return to work off of leave before the year was up, they didn't count you in that statistic at all. They were just looking at people who at 1 year on leave, how many of them were returning to work, and it was 1%.
Mhm.
All right. I'd have to find the exact study to tell you. But yeah, it was a disgustingly low number. And so I guess they concluded that the support wasn't there for people to return to work, so they weren't. And so this was a way for them to work on, getting that done, which, and I'm fighting a war on this because I dislike the wording of this, and I'll explain it. We use in employment, you'll be familiar with this, the term accommodations.
Mhm.
Frequently, we use it in school, we use it in workplaces, we use it all over the place. Here's my problem with that. It's a very patronizing and stigmatizing term. Because as an employer, what are you really doing? You're accommodating someone to work for you. So I have turned around and I don't use the word accommodation anymore. I refer to anything that's put in place to help someone maintain a position or maintain their schooling as a success tool. Because if we put that tool in place for one person so that they can be successful, that tool is then available for anybody who needs it to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so thank you for your piece of advocacy there. So they still use that term, as you would know, accommodation,
Yeah.
and that can, there are some gray areas there,
Yeah.
as you would know. So accommodation, I mean, it could be some people. This is just an example,
Yeah.
because I've seen some of this, in the past. It could be that not everybody is good to use a particular software to do documentation, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So they have to come up with a creative way to assist that individual. But I like how you use like more of a positive term there, kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? Yeah, but that's the term they still use, even the school system and whatnot. They
I
kind
know.
of put people in different categories, you know what I mean, right?
The thing is, if you look at the disability world, okay, curb cuts were put in place for people who were using wheelchairs, right? Ramps put in place for people using wheelchairs, automatic doors put in place for people using wheelchairs. Guess what? Those same tools help mothers with strollers.
Oh, good point. And now I notice I can't remember. It's too bad I cannot remember the specific wording for it or words. But now I notice they're not using the word disabilities anymore at some of the parking spaces and so forth for
Yeah.
people who are differently able, so to speak. I think they're starting to change the language now and things of that sort as well too.
And you know what? That's another thing is our language keeps evolving, and it's evolving at an extremely quick rate, because what would have been an acceptable term to use even 5 years ago sometimes now is not. And we have terms that are being reclaimed that were originally considered offensive. And man, trying to keep up with language is really challenging. But at the same time, our words have a great deal of power. One of my participants in one of my peer groups came out with a brilliant piece of wisdom that I swear I'm going to write on a wall so I have it in front of me, which is the words that we speak are the spells that we cast.
Wow.
Yeah, not mine. I wish it was.
No, I know. No, I totally hear you. Yeah.
You know.
So listen, thank you for sharing all of this. So what we'll do, we have a few minutes more left here. So what I'll do, I mean, do know that I appreciate all the pieces that you've highlighted here and all of that. But I want to talk a little bit about your volunteer work. You also volunteer, I believe, over the years in some shape or form and things of that sort. And I mean, it resonates with me because for me, give it back, it's always an important thing, right? And so why do you give back to the community?
Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, volunteering was actually how I built my skill set in computers, because I didn't have any formal education initially. I literally learned by puttering around with the computer at home myself and by volunteering. It also provided me an opportunity to have routine and something I could do. And these are all equal measure, right? None of them is more important than the other. The other thing too is that at some point in time, for example, I spent a long time volunteering with the Cambridge Self-Help Food Bank. Well, at some point in time, right, I have needed food banks.
Yeah.
And so being able to volunteer and give back, right, is kind of a way of getting my dignity back for having had to go, because now I'm contributing in. That was the Cambridge Self-Help Food Bank originally had a co-op food program where you were expected to do 1 hour of volunteer work every week, and then every 2 weeks you got a hamper that you paid a small amount of money for. right? It would literally give you like $60 worth of groceries for like $5 or $10. I don't remember exactly what the monthly fee was, but I like the idea that in order to get my food, I had to put in actual manual labor, which means I earned it. It wasn't a handout, and I got to maintain my dignity and my sense of having earned that food as opposed to it just being handed to me. And I think I feel that way about a lot of things. I think that for me, even now, when I get support for something, I still want to be able to give back so that I know that I paid back or I've earned that support. That's one of those values that my parents instilled in me, and my parents were both silent generation, right? My mother was 6 years old at the end of World War II. My father was 11 years old at the end of World War II. They both had stories about the war that they would occasionally tell. And, I had a strong work ethic and a belief that you earn what you have. And so volunteering was a way, if I couldn't go out and earn the money to buy it, but I could get it from an organization, I was more than happy to volunteer back in order to be able to pay back for what I was given. Right. And like I said, at the same time, it was great references. I learned a lot out of volunteering that I wouldn't have otherwise learned. And it really was, my resume was peppered with volunteer things. And even now I still volunteer, right? I currently sit as a volunteer on the board of directors of PeerWorks, which is the provincial advocacy and awareness organization for peer support workers across the province of Ontario. I'm literally pitching to politicians that they need to fund peer support. And I'm doing that as a volunteer because that's my way of paying back for all of the opportunities that peer support gave me. And they gave me a lot because I got to take all of the terrible, not great things that happened in my life and leverage those into being my greatest career strengths through peer support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I have to get you to share this Lighthouse Award story there.
Yes.
So I think it's important. So you were part of the selection committee and whatnot, but I want you to tell the story. So why not take control and kind of give some context as well too, and kind of let folks know as to why you've made the decision you made and things of that sort. So the folks who are watching, listening, I have received a very prestigious award, and many folks follow me, so they'll know. But our guest here, I never met her before, but she was one of the individual who was responsible to make this selection. She didn't know me, but there was a unique story behind this particular one where she really advocated to make sure that I was a recipient. So take it away and share that story. I think that's a good story.
Because he might be overstating it. So I wasn't actually part of the selection committee.
Oh,
so
you
the
weren't?
selection committee was a separate group. And the nomination had been submitted for you to receive a Lighthouse Award from PeerWorks, because we give these out provincially every year, like Peer of the Year, Ally of the Year, so on and so forth. And what happened was that the nomination for you, the selection committee came to realize that it didn't fit any of our categories. But at the same time, the nomination was very well supported and very appropriate to get the award. So the selection committee came to the conclusion that we'd either have to try to shoehorn you into a category, which was going to prove to be difficult, or we could just give you an award without a category to it. And so they presented both of those options to the board of directors. And of course, I'm sitting on the board, and this is when I find out that we actually had somebody who was nominated from Waterloo Region, which is where I'm from. And so I was kind of like, well, looked through all of the information and everything, and went, you know what, I'm good with like when they asked us to vote, I'm like, yeah, I'm good with giving them the award without a category, because it makes sense to me that we would give the award. And the fact that I was local to you at the time also, I think, helped reinforce that. But at the end of the day, the board directors all made their own decisions as to which way they voted. And the vote was to give you the award without putting it into a category. And so then when the time came to do the award presentation, I actually asked if I could present you with your award, because I was like, can I do that? Because I mean, I'm from the same region as this person. I would really like to be able to give them the award. So they gave me the opportunity to present you with the award, which I was thrilled to do.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. And you are all over the place now because the picture with you and I, it's all
Yeah.
over the place in lots of articles and things of that sort. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. And what I like about that story, and the reason why I asked you to share the story
Yeah.
is that you guys could have just don't even bother because because my work is very diverse and there was more
Mhm.
broader, so it was hard to kind of fit fit in a
Yeah.
specific category. And the fact that you didn't know me and nobody obviously at that time knew me, like in that sense, like we didn't have like any sort of closeness relationship per
Yeah.
se. Maybe one or two people through in different ways, but not any kind of relationship. The fact that you folks have gone that far tells me something though. For me, that was a good ethical decision. Not that I needed another award. And the fact that you wanted to be the presenter for that, I also speak highly of you as an individual too. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at things from all different angles, and I think all of that has led me to reach out to you too, because now we are connected obviously on like
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and we see what each other, we see, the work that we do, so to speak.
Mhm.
And you've been very consistent and so forth. So I really appreciate you sharing the story. I appreciate the decision that was made. I don't know all the folks there, but
Mhm.
I really appreciate it. I think that that was a good thing because you guys found a way to make it work, right? I did not know that it had to go through the board of directors and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's I
Yeah.
just learned that.
No, the awards are all decided in the end. See, the selection committee makes the recommendation, and then the board
Mhm.
actually approves
Make the
the
final, yeah,
recommendations. Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, we have in the past turned around and not approved a decision by the selection committee because we felt it didn't fit. Because the selection committee is a smaller subcommittee.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really interesting. And I mean, I'm all about, not gonna lie, I'm all about promoting my locals, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I actually am the only board member who is west and south of the Greater Toronto Area, because there's nobody west of me in southwestern Ontario. So
Mhm.
literally, I'm kind of cover all the way from Waterloo Region out to like Windsor in terms of representation in that regard, which is kind of weird. Because I am and I'm not representing them. We're technically not representing our regions, but I'm kind of hanging out there. Um, the PeerWorks thing has been interesting, but what I also wanted to take a moment to talk about too, because we talked about the employment side of what I do.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, we didn't talk so much about the peer support side, and I want to highlight a couple of things.
Sure, absolutely.
So, in about 3 weeks, I will be traveling to Ottawa for the Power of Peer Support Conference, which is being put on by PeerWorks and Peer Support Canada. I will be traveling with a staff member from Women's Crisis Services Waterloo Region, who run in Selma House and Haven House, the two domestic violence shelters here in Waterloo Region. And we will be doing a presentation at that national conference on the pilot project that we did or have been doing for the last year, in which I am doing peer support outreach into those two domestic violence shelters. The irony of this being, remember when I said at the beginning I lived in 4 shelters?
Mhm.
The
Yep.
very first one I lived in was Haven House.
You're
And
kidding
I
me.
now do peer mental health outreach into Haven House, albeit it was in a different building than it is in now. But yeah, I actually was a resident of Haven House for a while. And it's a really interesting thing to see what happens when I introduce myself to someone at Haven House and I say, and by the way, I lived in this shelter at one point in time, but it was in a different building,
Different building now.
right? It was over on Argyle Street in Preston. It's no longer there. Now it's in Galt. Much bigger building. Each of those buildings has capacity for 20 adults and approximately 40 children. And I have met some of the bravest, most courageous women who don't believe that they are
Mhm.
in that work. I have had one of the rarest experiences of my life, which is that somehow I ended up giving peer support to a 13-year-old young man. Children are not in the scope of my role.
Mhm.
But when he sits down next to you and says, "Can I talk to you?" I'm not about to tell him no when we're in a shelter, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Um, and so you roll with the punches. You know, you take what's coming. And sorry, that was really bad wording, but you roll with whatever gets put in front of you. And
Absolutely.
prior to this year-long pilot project, I actually did a year of mental health outreach into the King Street shelter that was run by the Working Center in the old Schwabing Club on King Street in Kitchener, as well as the House of Friendship Men's Shelter for a year. So I literally went back to House of Friendship after having resigned, but I went back as a mental health outreach worker,
Mm, yeah.
right?
A
And
lot
at
has
that, a
changed.
peer.
Yeah, a
So,
lot has changed here now, as you would know. We don't have to get
oh
into
yeah,
it, but as you know,
yeah,
the CEO is gone, the
yeah,
HR director is gone, and they're kind of they're growing though, which is good. That goes to
yeah,
show that there's still a need, right, for those kinds of
oh yeah,
work for sure. So
yeah.
listen, so when you're not busy driving to Ottawa to advocate for services and project and when you're not doing your day job, so to speak, what is it that you do for fun for you?
Okay,
Like
so
self-care.
that's gonna be interesting. Um, so and I'm getting back into this now because I kind of had to pull away from these pieces for a while because I had other things going on in my life. Um, so my father was actually a Formula One steward, Formula One
Mm,
car racing. He was also a semi-professional race car driver in the 1960s and into the early 1970s. He retired as a race car driver when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and then he was a steward. But yeah, my father's actually a retired Formula One's, well, was a retired Formula One steward. He passed away about a year and a half ago. And so from him, I earned my love of motorsport. I'm actually a
mm,
licensed race official. I have traveled to the 24 hours of Spa at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. I've traveled to the 24 hours of Le Mans in Le Mans, France, 3 times.
mhm,
I have traveled to the Race of Remembrance in November in Anglesey, Wales, which for the record was probably the coldest, most miserable race weekend I ever did in my life because, man, that rain comes in horizontal off the Irish Sea, let me tell you.
mhm,
And they told me, "Oh, it's going to be cold. You should pack warm." I'm like, "It's freaking snowing in Canada. I'm Canadian. I know this." And then, of course, I got there and no, it's a damp cold instead of like straight up snow.
mhm,
I've done multiple IndyCar races in the United States as well as here in Canada. I've done everything from NASCAR to sports cars to you name it. So that's my summer months. And the beauty of motorsport for me is that it lets that hypervigilance that I deal with as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder run free and rampant, and it's a good thing. When you're standing, 6 feet away from cars doing 200 miles an hour, and there's just a concrete barrier and some fence between you and that car. And it also is an extremely mindful activity because I need to be fully focused on what's right in front of me, which is great. In the winter, unfortunately, I don't have car racing except for a little bit of
mhm,
ice racing here and there. Yes, we do race on ice with
mhm.
studs and without, but a little bit of ice racing. There's not much else going on. And this is where my mother's passion comes into play because my mother and I used to sit and watch hockey games,
Oh wow.
specifically the Toronto Maple Leafs
There you go.
when I was a kid. Hockey night in Canada, Saturday night. So at any rate, when I was watching, Daryl Sittler and Lanny McDonald were playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as well as Boria Salming, who recently passed away. Anyway, I have great passion for hockey. Not that big of a fan of the NHL at this point. I've
Mhm,
kind of become disenchanted with it, but international hockey, so things like World Juniors and Olympic hockey and stuff like that, the international cups where they're playing for the country, that I really love. And one of my all-time favorites every January is that 2 weeks that they run World Juniors in from Boxing Day through to about 5 days after New Year's. So, you're not going to find me in that 2 week period doing anything other than watching hockey. So hockey is another thing, and I really love it, and I know it very, very, very well. Fortunately, I live out in Ayr, and we have our own little Greater Ontario Hockey League team here, the Ayr Centennials. and
Mhm.
tickets are really cheap, and they're just down the street from me, so I go watch them now. Um, so those are a couple of the things I do. I love coloring. I also love doing latch rugs. I love cooking. Um, I at one point in time I have actually a bow and arrows. I used to do target shooting.
Mhm.
I will probably be getting back to that in the not too distant future because I really loved it. Um, I love reading. I love learning new languages. So I spent some time learning some rudimentary Punjabi. Um, I spent some time learning some rudimentary Mandarin and a little bit of rudimentary Korean, and I'm fluent in French and English. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
Good stuff. Wow. You have lots going on. So listen, I want you to know that I appreciate you
yeah.
taking time off your busy schedule to join us here. That's amazing. Your story really, it's inspiring, right? Because at the early age, you've had some challenging times, but you didn't let any of that to hold you back. You could have gone, a whole different path,
Oh,
but here you
absolutely.
are, right? And here you are, doing well. You are a lifelong learner, right? You continue
Mhm.
to advance yourself. Whenever the opportunities comes your way, which is great. I know this might come of a surprise to you, and that's okay. Surprise is not a bad thing. I want you to know that just in case if you weren't aware, it was me who initiated the Active Vision Award over 20 years ago. Because for me, this award, it's not, it doesn't gear towards one thing where it's the
No.
arts or the environment or mental health. There's a reason why it's called active vision. For me, anybody who is active, right,
Mhm.
and has a vision, right, they're entitled for this award. And you are very fitting for this. And so do know that we will make arrangement to present you with that award, the Active Vision Award. I want you to know that. And very
Oh,
reason. Yes, yes, yes. And so this is your moment to embrace that feeling. Um, but we have kind of enhanced the name a little bit as well too, because as you know, people continue to brand and rebrand and whatnot. So the award is actually called the Activision Hall of Fame Award. And very fitting, and that's one of the beautiful thing because I remember when my time, you folks had like difficulties to fit in me really,
mhm.
but this one is very broad. It fits in nicely
Yeah.
with anything, so to speak. And so, like I said to you, we are going to make arrangements to make sure we deliver that accordingly. I'm now giving you the last, giving you an opportunity to say any last minute thing you would like to say, and then we will wrap it up. I do know that we are forever grateful. We're going to continue our professional relationship,
Oh, yeah.
behind the scene here. Continue your great work. Um, yeah, your work is extremely important. It is needed. People need it. And as you can see, and if you look at stats, it makes a huge difference. People just need, a second chance, and people need that break. And we have to be mindful to make sure that we're not judging people based on choices that have made and all that, because we're not in their shoe, right? And
Mhm.
so you understand those language really, really well. So continue your great work. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'm always here, as you know. You can reach it to me anytime, as you feel needed, kind of thing. So take it away. Any last minute thing you'd like to say, and then we'll wrap it up.
So I'm just going to say thank you very much for that. You will find this probably shocking. This will be the first award that I've ever received for the work that I'm doing in mental health.
No way, no, this can't be right.
Wait,
No,
wait.
so this is
Yeah.
it's a shame. I'll tell you why. Because this is your moment to shine. I said it's a shame for a reason because this coming Saturday I'll be honored in Toronto with a huge award, with a big celebration going on there. And for me, it's important for us to make sure we're closing those gaps and so forth. But
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. This award is being presented to you for your own efforts, right? Your own
Yeah.
efforts over the years and so forth. And so cherish the moment, cherish that. We'll make sure I connect with you so that we'll make it special, special moment for you. But take it away.
Yeah.
And
No, I just thought I would tell you that this for me is quite a thing because honestly, I have never ever received an award for anything I've done in mental health yet. But that also speaks very, in my head, it speaks very much to the thing of there's a lot of people who talk about social justice. There's a lot of people who post on social media about social justice. LinkedIn is a great example. And yes, I make posts on LinkedIn. That said, there's a difference for me, because there is no point in posting anything online if I do not back it up with actually taking the action in the analog world, right? Digital means squat without the analog. And what I've been posting about the last while on LinkedIn, by and large, has been about the shelter pilot that we're going to do the presentation on in a few weeks in Ottawa. Because it is such a unique program. It is very unusual. It's rare, but not unique, to have a pure mental health outreach worker in a domestic violence shelter, right? It's not unheard of, but it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often, yeah.
Mainly because you don't have a peer in a position of recovery where they're able to handle that, because it can be exceptionally challenging. I fortunately am in that position. I'm able to make a difference, and I have really, really enjoyed, like, I've learned so much out of the year I've been doing this. So much. You want to know all about all the barriers that women who are looking to leave intimate partner violence, elder abuse, right, or their children being abused, even if they're not, or human or sex trafficking? Man, I got a list a mile long of things that hold them back, many of which can be resolved that are very practical. And so for me, it's not about sounding off on social media. It's not about making LinkedIn posts. It's not about posting on Facebook or any of the others. For me, it's about actually getting down there in the trenches and doing the hard, heavy lifting. And for me, social justice is literally picking up the phone and calling a member of parliament because one of the people I'm supporting is having a problem. And I need that member of parliament to help me advocate to get the problem fixed, or I need them to understand why the problem exists. And those are the pieces that to me matter way more. And that is where my focus has always been on, is on actually quietly just doing whatever it takes to get this done for this person. So I don't look at the big global picture. I don't look at the big group picture. I look at it from the perspective of the person right in front of me needs this. What can I do to make that happen? Right? And if the thing is, if along the way, while I'm pushing forward to get this for this individual, that brings up a bigger systemic issue, then great, because then we can do something about it. The reality is that that's how I commit to social justice, is one person at a time. Because to me, it's not about numbers. It's about the actual person who is sitting in front of me. And what matters most to me is who people are, not what they are or why they ended up where they are. Right?
Fantastic. Yeah, without any question, you're very much passionate about what you do, and it shows through. Like that, I know, because when we first met and seeing your passion and how excited you were to really do the awards presentation there. That really told me a story. And then when we got connected, and I've consistently see your advocacy work, right? And I like what you mentioned just now, that a lot of people don't like that aspect of it. They don't want to do the heavy lifting. So I like what you said. I usually say not too many people want to get their hands dirty, but it's the same thing, right?
Oh, man. Listen, if I could spend my entire work life getting my hands dirty, okay, or doing the heavy lifting, I'm happy to do that. That is, for lack of a better way to put it, that is the thing that motivates and drives me, okay? For me, helping somebody get their application completed for the Canadian Dental Care Plan so that they can get their broken dentures fixed, okay? And then seeing them get approved for it and finding out that there's a denture clinic that will take that plan so that they can get their dentures fixed, so that they can eat the solid food they haven't been able to eat in the last, 4 weeks. Okay. To me, that's a huge win. Absolutely. Like a massive win. And those are the things that matter to me. Okay. Like I said, I don't give a crap what people post on freaking whatever threads. It means nothing. Okay. It's a bunch of digital words. It literally means nothing. At the end of the day, what matters is when I can get somebody a bed, or I can get a problem that they're having with ODSP fixed, or I could, and the thing is, as a peer, not only am I leveraging my own lived experience to support other people, but I'm also acting as a system navigator. I'm also acting as an advocate. And I'm also making referrals for people, and warm referrals for people to other services and programs, either within my own agency or other agencies where there are connections available that I have. And so part of my job is also about networking, right? And at the end of the day, I am there with the hope that when I walk away from my meeting with that peer, that I have made their day a little bit better, or their life a little bit better, or their circumstances a little bit better. Right? It doesn't always happen because sometimes my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. At the same time, I'm also one of the most creative thinkers that I have yet to meet a rule I don't want to seriously bend. I won't break them, but I will bend them, and I will bend them big. And, these are the approaches that I take to things, because to me, all those pieces are worth fighting for, because at some point in time, somebody fought for those pieces for me when I needed them to. Right?
Amazing.
And this is what I said about, how you take your biggest challenge and flip it over to be your greatest strength. What can you accomplish then? Right? I know what I've managed to accomplish by doing that. But what could everybody else accomplish if they did that?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, the passion. And so, I hope that you continue with that kind of passion, right? The passion is there. Your work is important, and you have to continue along. Like I hope that you have the physical and mental strength to kind of continue on for a long time, and continue to pass on your knowledge as well to other folks, because it makes a huge difference. We need people, we need more people like yourself in society, and so continue to mold people as they come, your way, so that they can be better version of themselves and things of that sort. So that's awesome to hear. So
Well,
listen,
that opening song you played, right? Can't Stop Me Now by Oh the Larceny.
yeah, and I'm gonna finish off with that song as well too. I'll finish off with that song.
That's me. You
Yeah,
can't
so
stop me now.
That's right. That song highlights exactly that song. So folks, for those of you who may have joined a little bit later, we obviously did an opening. We usually start up that way with a song and whatnot for those of you who've been watching the show. And the song that we open up with today, it's a very beautiful song. It's called Can't Stop Me Now. And this is exactly the story and the motivation of our guest here today, because she's already gone through all the difficulties in her life, and there's nothing can stop her now. Right? So I agree with that. I love it. So let's so we have lots to talk about, but do know that we'll have you back on, in future shows and so forth. This is just us scratching the surface. We have not done the heavy lifting yet on the show, right? Because it's just scratching here now. So do know that. So we'll have you back. We'll have you back, and we'll dive deep into it nicely. But we're gonna connect obviously after to find a way to present you with the Actor Vision Award. For the for the work you've been doing over the years and things of that sort, and the fact that you've never received an award for anything, if I heard it correctly, as it relates to mental health in particular, makes it a very special moment for me too. I want you to know that. So that's amazing. So it's like a win-win at both sides, right? All right. So my dear fellow listeners and viewers, as we are officially approaching the end of tonight's program, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. On behalf of myself and our very special guest here this evening, Colene, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even better tomorrow. And we leave you now with this beautiful song that really aligns with everything our guest was saying and everything that she has been doing. Can't Stop Me Now. So enjoy.
Tell no lies, I ain't gonna apologize. You can see just where